Good afternoon, everyone. I am Eric Lufer, the President of the Citizens Research Council of Michigan. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar on counties in Michigan and exercise in regional government. I have inserted a few slides to provide some context for the issues we are here to discuss. As the nation went through a recession in the period following the 9/11 attacks in 2001, Michigan was entering a decade-long single-state recession. The national economy began to grow again shortly after the attacks, but state policies and a slump in manufacturing activity kept Michigan's economy in the doldrums. The single-state recession was harder on state revenues than on property taxes that fund local governments. As the state worked to address its budget problems, it leaned heavily on revenues statutorily earmarked for statutory revenue sharing. The state has diverted about $7 billion in total since 2001 for other state purposes. This chart shows the magnitude of that shift. The blue parts of the bars represent constitutional state revenue sharing that is distributed to all cities, villages, and townships on a per capita basis. The gray parts of the bar are statutory revenue sharing that has been distributed to cities, villages, and townships to address variances in fiscal capacity. The black parts are funding that had been earmarked for statutory state revenue sharing, but was diverted for other purposes. On top of the declines in funding available for state revenue sharing, many local governments have experienced losses in their property tax base. The property tax, of course, is the primary source of revenue for Michigan local governments. This chart shows what has happened to the property tax base on a statewide level in both nominal dollars and when accounting for inflation. Taxable value peaked at $363 billion in 2008. When adjusting for 2016 dollars, that value was $412 billion. In 2016, taxable value totaled $327 billion. So you can see that two of the primary revenue sources for local government are down significantly. On a more micro level, we found that 85% of the 1,500 cities and townships have less tax base in 2016 than they did at their peaks when adjusting for inflation. 95% of the state population resides in one of these local governments. These local governments are located throughout the state. We found that the 2016 taxable values of these almost 1,300 cities and townships is 22% less than their inflation-adjusted peak values. And key to take away from this slide, those governments that had industrial property have been hit the worst. As you can see, industrial property is down 42% in real terms. And when we identify the local governments hit hardest by the loss of tax base, you can see that Southeast Michigan in the I-75 corridor up to Bay and Midland counties have been hit the hardest. This heat map represents the hardest hit areas with darker red. The neutral shades are areas that are breaking even, and the green shades are the areas that may be down compared to earlier times, but not as severely. The ability to recover from these revenue problems is limited. Local governments are at the state's mercy when it comes to funding state revenue sharing. The ability to grow back lost property taxes base is limited by constitutional property tax limitations put in place in 1978 as the Headley Amendment and by the taxable value cap enacted as part of Proposal A in 1994. And local governments in Michigan cannot levy other taxes, income, sales, motor fuel, etc., without statutory authorization that comes from the state. And then there are the cost pressures. Most of the middle-sized and larger cities and our bigger townships have provided defined benefit pension plans and promises of post-employment health care to their employees. The market investment losses of a few years ago and accounting changes combined to create cost pressures for local governments that they have to fund the normal cost as well as the unfunded accrued liabilities that were created with the weaker market. The Citizens Research Council has been working to identify causes for these problems and potential solutions. We have written about the revenue sharing program and offer distribution methods that will get funding to the local governments with the greatest needs. We have quantified the amount of property tax-based loss and offered suggestions or options for funding the local governments. The report we released 2 weeks ago addresses the spending side of the ledger. Albert Einstein's definition of insanity is doing the same things over and over and expecting different results. If we do not address the local government service delivery system, it is likely that Michigan citizens and business will continue to fund inefficiencies and will continue to support service delivery structures with reduced accountability. The Citizens Research Council is a statewide, nonpartisan public affairs research group. This is the Research Council's 100th year of operation, a longevity we attribute to our promotion of sound public policy for state and local governments through accurate, independent, and objective research. We are a private, not-for-profit entity, and we rely on charitable contributions of foundations, businesses, corporations, and individuals. I'd like to encourage all of you to join our circle of supporters and help us to continue to provide high-quality, independent information on important policy topics in Michigan. You can learn more about the Research Council at crcmich.org. At the right corner of our website, you'll find an opportunity to sign up for our email distribution list to be notified about newly released papers. Our presenter today is Jill Roof, a research associate for the Citizens Research Council. Jill worked for the Research Council for 5 years after a fellowship with us while she was earning her Master's of Public Administration degree at Wayne State University. After those 5 years, she took a hiatus and has since rejoined the staff to focus on local government affairs. So please note that we are recording this webinar and we will post it on our webpage where it will be available for future viewing. I want to let you know that we already have the slides up, but I just found out that the link isn't working. So if you give me a few minutes while the presentation is going on, we'll get that link fixed. You'll be able to download the slides for today's presentation. I want to let you know that we have everyone but the presenters on mute, so we will not be able to hear you speak. We would like to hear your questions, but we ask that you type them into the dialog box that is part of the GoToWebinar software that you're watching this through. You can type in your questions at any time. We will address those questions at the end of our session. If you have any technical problems during the webinar, please let us know by calling 517-485-9444. After the webinar, you will receive an email soliciting your feedback, and we would very much appreciate any feedback you have. With that, let me turn things over to Jill.
Good afternoon. My name is Jill Roof. I'm a research associate with the Citizens Research Council. I'm happy to be here today to talk about our report, Counties in Michigan, an exercise in regional government, to discuss the role of regional government and counties in the local government service delivery model. A recent report by Great Lakes Economic Consulting Study found that the problems local governments face are structural in nature, some of the issues already talked briefly about by Eric, and they go beyond the short-term problems caused by the the recent recession. Herein lies an opportunity for Michigan to address some structural issues by expanding regional governance at the county level. Expanded regional governance may improve both efficiency and economics of the local government service delivery model and may provide both service and revenue side benefits. Expanded regional governance can benefit from economies of scale by serving more people and economies of skill by spreading the provision of highly skilled services across more people and areas. Can benefit from less income inequalities. Counties generally are made up of higher income cities, villages, and townships, as well as lower income cities, villages, and townships, and there are less income inequalities than at the more local municipal level. As Eric discussed, state revenue sharing has been declining since the early 2000s. It may have a greater impact at the county level, if the state provides revenue sharing at the county level, it may increase the impact. Also, if policymakers allow local units to levy more local option taxes, this should be done at the regional level to make it less administratively burdensome and to limit negative externalities, such as if one municipality levies a local option tax and its neighbors do not. The Research Council in our report examined the local government service delivery model with a focus on counties and opportunities to deliver services more regionally. In order to understand the local government service delivery model, we need to understand the structure of local government in Michigan. So we looked at governance, revenue, demographics, as well as services provided. Now we'll talk about the governance structure. Michigan is made up of 83 counties, 533 cities and villages, and 1,240 townships. The state is divided into the 83 counties and every citizen lives in one county. The state is also divided into cities and townships, and each citizen lives in either a city or a township. They do not overlap. Township residents may also live in a village. Local units are not sovereign entities. They are creatures of the state and derive their power from the Constitution and laws of the state. Concepts such as home rule and local control simply refer to the degree of independence granted by the state. Michigan local government is characterized by a large number of local governments with overlapping geographical boundaries, service responsibility, and taxing authority. Counties are governed by boards of commissioners. They are also constitutionally required to elect a clerk, register of deeds, treasurer, sheriff, and prosecuting attorney, all of which have control over their own departments. This leads to what is called a plural executive form of government. General law counties boards have both administrative and legislative powers and duties. In general law counties, their actions are heavily restricted by state law. Of Michigan's 83 counties, 79 are organized under the general law. Optional unified counties provides another form of organization and is open to any county without a charter. Counties can organize in the optional unified with an appointed administrator or an elected executive, both of which have responsibility for most county agencies. This method provides greater executive coordination. Bay and Oakland counties are the only two that have organized under the optional unified structure. Charter counties, state law provides a process for any county to elect a charter commission and adopt a charter. Charter counties are still required to elect the constitutional officers, so they will still have a plural executive. The primary benefit of charter county establishment is the establishment of an accountable county executive with greater power to coordinate the executive branch. Macomb and Wayne counties are the only ones to adopt a charter status. This slide shows that the degree of accountability afforded through county organizing laws can be viewed along a continuum. Traditional general law counties provide the least accountability because credit or blame cannot clearly be placed on a single elected or appointed official. An optional unified structure with an appointed administrator provides some more accountability by transferring administrative functions to one official. An elected executive under an optional unified method organization with veto powers provides more centralized direction. And at the opposite end of the continuum is a charter county organized according to a plan adopted by voters and led by an executive. With 79 of 83 counties organized under general law, no form of government operates under a more antiquated structure than the county. Executive authority is dispersed, and this basic structure has existed since statehood in the 1830s. Many general law counties do have board-appointed administrators. Switching to an optional unified with an appointed administrator may provide additional benefits and freedom from some state intervention. State law provides a process to become an optional unified or a charter county. In order to get rid of the plural executive form of government with the constitutionally elected county officers would require amending the state constitution. Now we'll just discuss county demographics briefly. Michigan counties boast much diversity in population sizes and makeup, land area and population density, and education, income, and poverty levels. Counties range from 2,000 residents in Keweenaw County in the Upper Peninsula to 1.8 million residents in Wayne County. So they range from very rural to very urban. There's very rural, sparsely populated counties with no municipal governments other than townships to very urban, densely populated counties with many municipalities. There are differences in service needs and desires between urban and rural populations. Urban counties are going to have, residents of urban counties generally have higher service needs, but they also are more likely to live in a municipality providing services. So rural counties, while residents may generally require fewer services, they may require more from the county level because they are more likely to live in a township providing few or limited services. Local government revenue in Michigan consists largely of property tax revenue and revenue from other local option taxes, state revenue sharing and other state aid, charges and fees, and federal grants and aid. Property tax is levied by every type of local government and the state. This leads to little variety in revenue capabilities and competition among local units for the same revenues. Growing property tax burdens over the last half century or so have led to the passage of a number of property tax limitations. The state shares revenue with counties, cities, villages, and townships. County revenue sharing is distributed on a per capita basis. Counties and cities are authorized to levy some other local option taxes to fund particular services or diversify their revenue sources. Counties in Michigan have access to some selective sales taxes. Michigan cities have access to a local option income tax. A Michigan State University extension paper looked at county revenue in Michigan compared to other states in the country. It looked at 7 local option taxes that are authorized at the county level and found that Michigan counties had access to only one, the selective sales taxes, other than property taxes. Other counties in other states have access to income, sales, motor fuel, alcohol, tobacco, and utility users taxes. The report found that only 7 other states are as restrictive as Michigan in only allowing counties to levy property taxes and some selective sales taxes. This slide shows county general fund and all other governmental funds revenue. It shows the sources for the revenue, and that a little over a third of county revenue comes from property taxes. About 17% comes from state contributions, including state revenue sharing, about 14% from services and fees, and a little over 6% from federal contributions. A National Association of Counties report shows that counties in Michigan are not unlike counties in other states when it comes to revenue sources, as in the percentage of funds coming from own source revenue versus other sources. Own source county revenue would include fees, property taxes, other local option taxes. Other sources would be federal and state aid. The report also showed that most of a county's state and federal funding is restricted to specific purposes. This map highlights the variance in taxable values across counties in Michigan. The 2015 taxable value per capita of all counties was $33,159. 35 counties fell below this, are the property poor counties identified by the pink and red on the map. 48 counties were above this, property rich counties identified by the light and dark green. In 2015, taxable value per capita ranged from $20,452 in Genesee County to over $116,000 in Leelanau County. Now we get to what the focus of our report was on, local government service provision. County government was formed to perform administrative roles on behalf of the state government, roles such as record keeping, public safety, and criminal justice services. Counties have evolved from administrative arms of the state government to regional local governments with increased authority to deliver local services. Some states across the country have legally classified local units to differentiate powers and responsibilities, but not in Michigan. Legislative changes in Michigan have served to further confuse the roles of local governments, for example, by giving some powers to villages and townships that were previously reserved only for cities. With local government services being provided by counties, cities, villages, and townships, not to mention special districts and authorities, local government service provision becomes complicated, to say the least. In this research, we enumerated local government services and categorized them into core or mandated services, public safety services, essential services, and secondary or discretionary services. We looked at how their provision is impacted by state law and other regulations. We also looked at data from a catalog of local government service provision that the Research Council created in 2005 when we surveyed counties and local units in Michigan to see how they provided services. Local governments have little or no latitude in deciding whether to provide some services. Core services are vital to the operation of a government. Mandated services are required by state constitution or state statute to be provided by a certain level of government. However, these mandates are not always clearly stated in law and how to provide. Each level of government, county, city, village, township, has core functions. However, most mandated functions are performed by counties. The list of core or mandated services are long. How they are provided depend on state constitution and statutes as well as local charters, and all of this is detailed in our report. Public safety services comprise a unique category of services. They're not explicitly mandated, with the exception of the county sheriff, but they are required to some extent, and they are certainly necessary functions of local governments. The Home Rule Cities Act and Home Rule Villages Act both mandate cities and villages to provide for the public peace and health and for the safety of persons and property. State law also allows charter townships to provide for and establish a police force and other public safety services, but there is no mandate to provide for the public safety at the township level. Public safety services are provided by the Michigan State Police, county sheriffs, and local governments through municipal police, fire, ambulance, EMS, emergency medical services, 911 departments. These public safety services are generally provided separately, but some communities have combined them into public safety departments or have collaborated with other local units or the county to provide them. Essential services have been ruled by the state government and courts to be optional in that the state does not require local governments to provide them. However, they are essential to the functioning of a local government and its quality of life. These services are not mandated, but they may include regulations or mandates as to how to provide a service if a local government chooses to provide it. Secondary or discretionary services are not considered essential or necessary for the functioning of a local government, but they do affect the quality of life in a local government. A review of county expenditures provides some more insight into the services and functions provided at the county level. This slide shows general fund and all other governmental fund expenditures at the county level. County expenditures are largely spent on general government services, judicial services, health and welfare, and sheriff and police services. This pie chart, as well as another pie chart on the next slide, highlight the similarities and differences between county expenditure, general fund expenditures, and all municipalities' general fund expenditures. This pie chart was created by combining city, village, and township expenditures. Both spend a large portion of their budgets on police and general government services. Counties spend the remainder of their budgets largely on health and welfare services and judicial services. Municipalities spend the remainder of their budgets largely on fire, public works, and community and economic development services. These pie charts illustrate that the areas of service overlap, police and general government, and in these areas there may be areas where the county may be able to provide services for their constituent municipalities in these areas of overlap. The pie charts also illustrate that the counties are not very involved in some areas, for example, fire service, and there may be a county role in these areas that could benefit both county residents and constituent municipalities. In our research, we also looked at county government in other states. All but 2 states have county government. Some states call them by other names, such as parishes in Louisiana. Generally, we found counties in other states perform many of the same duties, functions, and services as counties in Michigan, such as health and welfare, roads and bridges, corrections and court services, and they have many of the same offices or similar type offices, such as clerks, treasurers, sheriffs. We took a closer look at county government in the Great Lakes states because they are close neighbors with Michigan and have organized their government in a manner similar to Michigan. Great Lakes states include Illinois, Indiana, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Generally, county government in these states operates under a commission form of government similar to Michigan, and they have similar county offices and departments. Some highlights of services provided at the county level in these states include library services, solid waste, public safety, elections, tax collection, and regional police services. County demographic, revenue, and expenditure data highlight the fact that the type and amount of services provided by county government in Michigan is not uniform. Rural counties serving small populations with no city government have very different service delivery needs and abilities than urban counties serving many residents and working with multiple municipalities. Any approach at regional governance has to understand and appreciate this variance among counties. Any recommendations will require allowing counties to tailor suggestions to meet their residents' and municipalities' needs as well as the county's abilities. With modern methods of transportation and communication, the county is positioned to be a provider of many local government services to the potential benefit of county residents and local governments. Counties can be hindered, however, by their governance structure. Majority of counties, almost all counties, 79 of 83, are organized under the general law with a plural executive and diffused accountability, and they need state legislative authorization to take actions and to provide services. Counties are also operate largely as standalone governments without a regional emphasis. Counties originally started out as a regional exercise in intergovernmental cooperation, but this has changed over the years and they've evolved more into standalone governments. Counties can and should play a vital role in bringing local units of government together and promoting intergovernmental cooperation and county provision of services. This may require a change in the thinking or culture of county government from the standalone entity to a multi-purpose function provider for their local units. Strong county leadership is needed to gear services to benefit local governments and to let local governments know that the county is amenable to working with them. Optional unified or charter counties with an appointed administrator or elected executive have more freedom from state intervention in governance and are well suited to managing all pieces of county government as a whole. If counties are to undertake more service delivery responsibilities, policymakers need to consider how the county role is to be funded. Our report recommends 2 options that are not mutually exclusive. First, counties could be authorized to levy more local option taxes. Other states have local option income, sales, motor fuel, alcohol, tobacco, and public utility taxes. None of these are available to counties in Michigan. Second, we could redirect state revenue sharing to counties by a formula that accounts for variances in fiscal capacity. The current per capita distribution of county revenue sharing reflects the fact that the state constitution mandates a county role in several services. However, a per capita distribution is an inefficient distribution of scarce resources. The problem, if we reform the system and distribute revenue sharing by a formula that accounts for variances in fiscal capacity, is that it will create winners and losers. A formula created for counties based on the distribution formula for municipalities shows that county revenue sharing would increase for 18 counties and decrease for 65. However, if all revenue sharing was directed to the county level, then a formula that distributes revenue sharing and accounts for variances in fiscal capacity would create winners and losers, but may be more palatable if it's used to distribute a larger pot of money. To determine optimal service delivery options, we looked at capital-intensive services, which can benefit from economies of scale. Capital-intensive services are those that require large expenditures for land, buildings, vehicles, or equipment. Once a local unit invests in the land or equipment, they may be able to share them beyond their borders. And these kind of services can benefit from horizontal collaboration, which is where two units of local government at the same level collaborate together to provide. The county role in capital-intensive services can be to provide them to all local municipalities to provide the service at the county level, or to provide it by contract to municipalities similar to a private provider contracting with local governments to provide a service, or to facilitate cooperation among local units within the county. We also looked at technically intensive services. These are services that require persons with a college degree or professional certification to provide. Once a local government has invested in the person with the requisite skills, they can usually share these services beyond their borders. So they benefit from economies of scale. These types of services can benefit from vertical collaboration, which is when a local unit of government collaborates with another level of government, such as the county, to provide. So the role of the county in technically intensive services can be to take the lead in providing them. Counties can relieve local units of providing burdensome services or provide them with services that they are unable to provide on their own. To further promote vertical collaboration and county-wide service delivery, counties need to ask two questions. One, what does the county need to operate better? And two, what do municipalities want that they cannot afford to adopt or can no longer afford to provide? Internally, counties need to look to the future of their county, see what types of services will be necessary or required of them in the future. Externally, counties need to understand the needs of their constituent municipalities, looking to what types of services do they want to provide but cannot afford, or what are they considering providing that may be better provided at the county level. The state has a role. The state both assists and constrains local units. The state provides local option taxes and shares state revenue. The state has institutionalized vertical collaboration by requiring county provision of some services. It could further institutionalize vertical collaboration by requiring county provision of more services, for example, property assessing. State has taken direct actions to promote local government collaboration. The state could adopt a county-wide shared services program, which would provide incentive or funding to counties that provide services to a certain percentage of their local cities, villages, and townships, or provide a certain number of services to cities, villages, and townships. The state can also be seen as hindering local governments with revenue restrictions and spending requirements. A Michigan State University Extension report identified Michigan as one of a few states that combines stringent limitations on local revenue options with spending pressures stemming from rising local service burdens and increased labor costs. Efforts to better enable county governments to serve their local governments and to absorb responsibilities for some services that will alleviate financial pressures on local units must start with information technology services. IT services include management information systems, geographic information systems, internet, intranet, and email and website services. If counties invest in the infrastructure and technology to create an intergovernmental intranet and connect the county to all the local units within the county, they will be able to offer file sharing and the development of resources to capitalize on advancements in communication, and they will be able to provide a number of functions on behalf of their local units of government. Some counties already do some of these things. Some are connected with a intergovernmental intranet or provide GIS services, but in most counties there's room for improvement. All other service areas can benefit from a county-wide intranet. Administration and general government services go beyond simple legislative and executive functions. They can include human resource services, fiscal services, and document services. In the private sector, companies have grown around the concept of providing human resource services for other businesses, allowing businesses to capitalize on the skills of a few rather than each business having to employ employees with the requisite skills to handle payroll, file taxes, things like that. The county, which needs to provide human resource services for county employees, could hire and provide the employees with the requisite skills for local units to provide HR services for local units. Same thing with fiscal services. County level accountants could provide services for multiple local units rather than accountants in each local unit focusing just on one unit of government. Oakland County has improved the efficiency at all levels of government by standardizing record keeping, which required the installation of a high-speed internet linking the county with its local units. Immediate access to local government information has made the county better able to perform its functions and gives local units easy access to digital records. County-level tax collection would simplify the collection and distribution of taxes from over 1,500 local units doing this to 83 counties. Counties currently collect taxes in 45 states, and state law allows local units to enter into an agreement with their county treasurer to perform this function. Sorry, I forgot to switch that slide over. If we consolidate the administration of elections with the maintenance of records and the reporting of results at the county level, we could bring uniformity to this task and consolidate duplicative tasks that are performed at the local level. Moving the full administration of elections to the county level would not diminish the local nature of the voting process. Local units would still be divided into precincts with convenient polling places. We would need to amend the Michigan election law to move the conduct of elections completely to the county level. Currently, property assessment is done at the city township level in most instances. Assessed values are then equalized at the county level to minimize variations caused by subjective input by local assessors. Assessing and equalization are not duplicative services, but they do require duplicative functions and knowledge obtained by county and local units. State law allows assessing to be done at the county level, and in many counties they do by contract provide assessing to some local units. If all assessing was done at the county level, we would eliminate one level of government in the assessing process and remove the need for county equalization. 30 states across the country currently do assessing at the county level, and counties may be in a better position to hire qualified appraisers than local units of government are. Road services are duplicative in that they are provided by the state, counties, cities and villages, although each level has responsibility for different roads. County road commissions could make their services available to any local jurisdiction to care for their roads. If local units do not want to hand complete road care over to the county, county road commissions could provide auxiliary services for municipal road agencies. These could include purchasing, road signs and traffic lights, engineering, winter road maintenance, or other services. Counties could provide capital-intensive services for their local units, such as garages and vehicles, and technically intensive services, such as mechanics. Police and public safety services are currently duplicated at the county and local level. However, service needs are determined by population, geographic area, road miles, and population density levels, and these remain the same whether the service is provided at the county, local level, or a combination of the two. County sheriffs provide police protection and road patrol services in townships. Many also provide some services by contract inside city boundaries. County sheriffs could provide police services to any local unit wishing to shed this service. They could also provide support services to municipal police and fire departments. Support services can include special units, public safety purchasing, emergency and disaster response planning, hazardous material handling, fire investigations, and administrative tasks. If there is a desire to move to regional policing and public safety, the counties are the logical regional unit to do this. Regional police can provide larger departments serving larger geographic areas and provide more specialized services. However, if there's not a desire to move to regional policing, counties could just provide by contract special and administrative services. State law requires cities and villages to provide for the public safety, but it does not preclude them from doing it through the county sheriff. Planning and zoning services can include code enforcement, community and economic development, issuing permits, building inspection. These are largely provided directly by local units, but they are also provided collaboratively and sometimes at the county level, such as with well and septic permitting. Regional land use planning and economic development can help control sprawl and make land use decisions that are best for the region. State law allows for regional planning and zoning, but it requires local governments to defer these powers outside of their boundaries. So it requires local units to give these powers to the counties. Local units are often hesitant to do this because they rely on the tax revenue that results from land use and economic development decisions, as well as these decisions affecting the identity of local units. Counties that can find a way to work with their local governments and to do more regional land use planning and economic development will benefit the entire region as a whole. Building inspection services can benefit from economies of scale. Building inspection requires technical expertise, and these can be done at the county level. Intergovernmental intranet would facilitate county level provision of building inspection services. Public works services include water, sewer, and stormwater. Sanitation services such as refuse collection and landfill services. These are largely provided at the local level, but they are often already provided collaboratively or privately. State law allows counties to provide these, but they may or may not benefit from county provisions since they are already often provided collaboratively or privately. Mass transportation is often provided regionally. However, in many urban areas, the mass transit services are not adequate to meet the need. There may be a county role in assessing and providing these services in urban areas as well as outside of central cities. Other services that can benefit from technical expertise in county provision may include environmental, engineering, and legal services. However, many of these services are largely provided by the county, state, or private providers. Water quality and environmental services require regional efforts beyond counties, and studies have called for greater coordination among counties. While this report focuses on county provision of services, there is an important role in county-to-county collaboration, which can benefit urban areas, but is most likely to benefit smaller rural counties found in northern Michigan and the Upper Peninsula. Services that can benefit from county-to-county collaboration include court administration and services, corrections and jails, road services, health and welfare, engineering and legal, drain commissioner, environmental, public transportation, and regional assets. In conclusion, local governments in Michigan have faced years of declining resources and growing expenditure pressures. These years have been marked by increased efforts at collaboration, service and expenditure cuts, and increases in local source revenue options. However, local governments face a structural problem in that revenues are not sufficient to meet growing expenditure pressures. One potential solution is to move more local government services to the regional level rather than providing them at the most local level. The Research Council, through years of research, has identified a number of services counties could play a bigger role in providing by either providing them directly to all local units or residents, providing them by contract to some local units, or facilitating collaboration among local units within the county. Many counties are already doing some of these things, but there is room for improvement. Before counties can meet additional service delivery and cooperation facilitation needs, some basic issues in county governance, resources, and service delivery need to be addressed. First, counties could benefit from modernizing their government to adopt a charter or organize as an optional unified county to provide more executive and administrative direction. Counties need strong direction to be a regional leader and unifier. Second, counties need resources if they're to undertake more services. These can come from moving state revenue sharing to the county level and or from adopting more local option taxes at the regional level. And third, we need to change the mindset of county government officials from one of a standalone government and simple provider of some state and local services to a provider of services to their local municipalities and a regional unifier. Counties in Michigan are not uniform. There's many differences in size and population, urban versus rural makeup, revenue levels and sources, and expenditure levels and needs. The Research Council is not advocating a one-size-fits-all solution, but rather a move to thinking of local government more in terms of the region and what the county can do in a more efficient and economical manner than a city, village, or township may be able to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. We've had a few questions come in, but there is certainly opportunity for more. I just want to say as we go to questions, we hope everyone thinks of this as an opportunity to start thinking about how we do our local government services, how we provide them in a different way. We hope to start a discussion with this. We don't claim to have all the answers, but how do we start the dialogue and start moving things? So the first question, you talked about sort of the county government structure and the fact that many counties have administrators. And the question is posed, why would they want to move towards an executive? Isn't this akin to moving from a city manager to a strong mayor, something that most cities have moved the other way towards a manager? Why are we advocating the other way for the counties?
Well, we're not necessarily advocating for an elected executive. We're saying that we could modernize government, and the options available include an optional unified government where you could choose an elected executive or an appointed administrator and give the counties more control over their government. State law, the process for becoming a charter county in state law right now only gives the opportunity for an elected executive, but state law could potentially be amended too to allow for an appointed administrator at the charter level. We are more advocating to modernize the government so the counties have more authority over their form of, so that people can have more authority to form a local government and are less limited and restricted by state law and all the boards and commissions identified in state law. So we're not necessarily saying you need an elected executive. We're saying that we need modernized government with more accountability at the county level.
The next question that has come in has to do with the fact that many of our cities and some of our bigger townships have cost pressures that I addressed at the beginning, the pensions and the healthcare for retirees. The question is, how will this proposal impact those obligations? What happens to those, or what happens to the cities and their ability to fund those?
I think I might let Eric answer that question. He has a lot more experience in the local government services and expenditure pressures.
So we thought about this as we are putting this together, and really what we see is that cities have limited resources, and some of those have been affected by the loss of state revenue sharing or for the loss of property taxes, and those obligations that are at the root of this question are not going away. The pension says that, or the Constitution says that the cities have to honor the pensions that have been promised. The healthcare is a little looser, but still the moral obligation is there to try to live up to these obligations. So what we're trying to do is say, how do we maintain the service levels that the citizens are accustomed to? How do we make sure that the things are done in the most efficient way possible, and thus free up resources at the local government level with our cities and townships, so they can pay for the obligations that they have and also focus their spending on making their places attractive for the residents and for the businesses, to really focus on the placemaking that we see in many of our more successful cities, that really pays off as an attraction to where people want to live and work. Let me go down here to this one. Next question, are there instances in more rural counties where certain service functions would make more sense to be handled by one or more by one of the more sophisticated component municipalities? I think we'll come back to that question. Maybe you need to handle that one offline. Next question, will this proposal be revenue neutral to keep tax pressures off the taxpayers?
Well, in our section on revenue recommendations, we acknowledge that if counties are going to take responsibility for more services, they need revenues to provide these services. One of the options we discuss is moving state revenue sharing to the county level. We're not talking about increasing state revenue sharing, but rather moving it to the county level rather than spreading it across all municipalities. The other option does discuss some local option taxes that would provide counties with more diverse revenue sources and more options in diversifying their revenue source. All of these things are dependent on state authorization. None of these are open to the county right now.
All right, the next question, how long do you foresee your recommendations, if implemented, withstanding a serious economic downturn without needing additional adjustments? In other words, how sustainable are these recommendations?
Well, I think we're trying to move towards providing government in a more efficient manner, so it would be more able to sustain through economic downturns. Providing services more regionally would provide local units with moving services rather than having the most local units of government that are struggling for revenues, providing more services. We're moving them to the regional level in hopes that they'll be able to be continued to provide in an efficient and economical way, and we can make better decisions as we go through economic downturns and things like that at a more regional level.
Yeah, just to echo that, part of our thinking is when we look at what's happened through the last downturn, it's clear that there are poorer parts of our county, some municipalities with less fiscal capacity than others, and within a county as a larger entity, that is offset with some relatively wealthier communities. I don't mean to cast light in any way, but that it's sort of the political, the economic reality. Communities are poorer than others. And what happens if we look at the county level now, by spreading it over a wider geographic area, those areas offset. And when we look at what's happened over the last decade or so, many of our counties have not lost as much, have not suffered as much as some of the cities or townships within them. So we think in the long term, this will better position our providers of local government services to withstand the economic downturns. Mind you, property taxes generally do not go through the sort of downturn that we've seen through this cycle, but all in all, if we could find more efficient ways of providing services and a stronger economic base, that should position us well for the next downturn. So the next question came in, and I'm going to try to handle this one. Why hasn't the report suggested one solution that would minimize the redundant administrative cost, reducing the number of cities, villages, and townships in favor of centralizing these functions at the county level? So my response is that we've been trying this in Michigan. We've had efforts in Genesee County to combine a city and a township, had efforts up in Manistee County, and just at the end of 2015, the question in Saugatuck and Douglas to put two cities together. And in each case, the voters in those municipalities have said they want to keep what they have. They're not in favor of reducing the number of local governments if that means that their government is eliminated. It's kind of like art, that or the poorer politicians, they know they're out there, but it's not their own. That's the problem. So what we're trying to do with this, with these recommendations, is say we don't need to necessarily eliminate the number of cities, villages, and townships, but we have to reduce the number of service providers. And we're trying to accomplish this on sort of a service by service level to find efficiencies and to address these sort of on a piecemeal basis moving forward rather than an all-in-one effort. In the long run, that might lead to some elimination of our local governments, but that's not our intent from the outset. So we've had one more question come in, and it is so voluminous I can't quite get to it. So we'll try to handle that one offline. Try to get back to you. Let me see. So a follow-up to that question, the asker follow-up, shouldn't previous failures to reduce the number of local governments govern our actions going forward? Shouldn't we try harder? And my response to that is yes, that one thing that's been missing through those past efforts that I just ticked off is the state has stood on the sidelines. And if the state is serious about finding efficiencies for our local governments, helping our taxpayers to save money, it should get involved in these efforts and be proactive going forward and not sit on the sidelines letting the local governments sort of wallow about through this decision-making process. So with that, let me wrap up. Thank you all again for coming. Once again, this session has been recorded. It takes a little time for it to process, but it'll be available on YouTube and a link to that on our website. I've been trying throughout this presentation to get these slides online. With great frustration, it's not quite working, but I'm going to figure out what's going on and we'll get that fixed, and those slides will be available very soon as well. I want to remind you that there will be an email that comes out as part of the GoToWebinar program asking for any thoughts and feedback on the webinar. We very much welcome your thoughts. We're relatively new to this webinar game, and any thoughts you have on how we could do this better are very much appreciated. Thank you all for attending, and this concludes the presentation.